You're getting ready to hear the podcast you didn't know that you needed, but eventually you will understand why you need it. This is Tales from the Pails.
Well, we're back, Jerred, and you know what time it is.
Listen, we just wrapped up an awesome event here at Spartan Chemical.
Yeah, we had over 60 guests from across the country that we hosted up here for 3 days of networking, speakers. We brought in some other vendors and just had a phenomenal time.
Yeah, it was a great event. We do it every August here at Spartan headquarters, and we hope to see you there next year. Just a great event. We got, like you said, terrific speakers, terrific networking, a lot of BSC owners and leadership, and got to really talk to each other about the industry, where it's going, trends, what we see happening, and how we partner together in there.
Yeah.
As a Spartan.
Some really good roundtable discussions around where the BSC industry is. A lot of feedback, a lot of questions from our guests, and just a really good time. Yep. We also were able to get in another episode from Tales from the Pails.
Tales from the Pails, our project, right? Yeah, we had the honor of interviewing the legend, Ohio State football legend, offensive lineman Jack Mewhort. Then he went on to his career in the NFL with the Indianapolis Colts. He was gracious enough to come in and talk to our group about leadership and teamwork and communication, how that translated from him playing at the highest levels of competition into the business world. It was awesome.
It really was. His perspective and what it took to get to the NFL ultimately and the path that he got there, I think was really translatable for everybody in not only the BSC industry, but in any industry, really.
Business owners.
What it takes, the focus and the determination you need to be successful. And I think he had a really consistent message, and it was really awesome to be able to interview.
It was so fun, like how you build a team and how you relate that, right? Like so much fun. And then, of course, at the end, our motto, Tales from the Pails, even though he's not from our industry, we got a really good, funny story from his industry that you asked him about, which I thought was just a hit right on.
It was great. It was great. And I think the way he answered it was amazing. And we're going to watch that now.
So really excited about this opportunity today, and thank Jack for being here. But let me introduce Jack Mewhort. Did I say it right? Mewhort?
Yeah,
Mewhort?
close enough.
Okay, good. I'm Attanasio, so I get it, right? But Jack is one of the most accomplished offensive linemen to come out of Ohio State in the past 2 decades. A native here of Toledo, Ohio, Mewhort was a standout at St. John's Jesuit High School before joining the Buckeyes, where he developed into one of the nation's premier offensive linemen. During his career at Ohio State from 2010 to 2013, Jack was a 3-year starter, earning first-team All-Big Ten honors and being named first-team All-American as a senior in 2013. Known for his versatility, toughness, and leadership, he helped anchor one of the country's top offensive lines while playing both guard and tackle. His success in college led to the 2014 NFL draft, where the Indianapolis Colts selected him in the second round with the 59th overall pick. Jack quickly established himself as a reliable starter on the Colts offensive line, earning PFWA All-Rookie Team honors in the first season. Over 5 NFL seasons, he started 45 games, protecting quarterback Andrew Luck and helping the power the Colts offense before injuries ended his career playing in the NFL. And I think Luck probably retired after you left too, right?
Yeah.
It kind of went hand in hand.
It did a very, very nice intro there, Jerred, but I don't think any offensive lineman ever wants to broadcast the fact that he was blocking for Andrew Luck. And the other thing is, anytime an offensive lineman gets described as versatile, what that means is you're not that good at any position. So just here we go. See, very, very, very nice. A lot of fluff in there, and a little embarrassing. I don't know. We might have to do a fact check some of it, but
I don't know. See, the way I always looked at it was Jack was one of the guys that they could put anywhere, and he performed well. And anybody who's a football fan or even watched the movie Blindside, you know how important the left tackle position is, and that's what Jack excelled at, left tackle. I mean, that's to me. Yeah, I'm biased too, again, because one, I'm a Buckeye, but my oldest son was also an offensive lineman. Left tackle and offensive lineman, to me, it's just, you're a different breed, right? Like you're you're protecting. You don't get all the frills. You don't get all the accolades of the quarterback, right? Like in the newspaper, it doesn't show, Jack pancaking a 400-pound lineman that's trying to kill his quarterback. It shows the quarterback throwing a pass because he had enough time because Jack kept him safe, right? So I think that's, it brings to me a unique perspective. So Jack also works in his family business here and runs a very successful family business in Toledo. And he's a color commentator for Toledo on Saturdays as well. University of Toledo football. So what I'm excited about is having Jack here. Cause we talked about it. Derek brought it up when we were talking in the panel about, kind of leadership and teamwork and how that all kind of revolves. I always relate a lot of things back to sports. So really excited about having you here, Jack, to kind of talk about that and what that means. So I'm going to jump right into it if you're good. All right. So we always talk about accountability in our industry, right? Because again, we talked about it before, like cleaners are accountable and they're the front line. So on the O line, one missed assignment shows up instantly on film. How do you build that level of ownership on a team where mistakes aren't always visible, but being that person that kind of gets called out for that?
Yeah, well, especially I think offensive line in the game of football is a unique position because there are 5 guys in that unit on the field at any given time, sometimes 6. But so that you have to be accountable to a guy on your left and your right. And if you don't hold up your end of the bargain, not only the unit's going to suffer, but usually the team's going to suffer. We used to call it an MA, missed assignment. If you miss a block and if there's a free runner and he gets into the backfield right after the snap, the play's dead. And, you said it, Jerred, as an offensive lineman, you don't show up in the newspaper for the good stuff. It's usually when you miss a block or your highlights are going to be really low lights. So, from the accountability perspective, that the entire, Urban Meyer used to call it the apex of the offense. The center was the apex of the offense and it all started out front. He probably just said that to make us feel good as offensive line, but it all started with us, and we truly believe that if the offensive line didn't do their job, nobody else would be able to succeed normally on any given play. So you feel that pressure, and you have that accountability, again, not only to the other guys in your unit playing next to you, but the guys behind you, the wide receivers, and then, the defense watching on the sideline. If you have a bad play, those guys are going to be rolling their eyes too.
Yeah, so you brought it up. The linemen don't always get the accolades that they deserve. So how do you find motivation in that type of role as a unit, right? As an offensive line, how do you find the motivation to kind of be almost being overlooked in that position?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing. We just talked about any great football team. You look at the Super Bowl winning teams, usually every year they have a great offensive line. I'm just thinking, my mind goes back to the Philadelphia Eagles and their recent victory. They've had a dominant offensive line in the NFL for a long time, and they're perennially a great football team. And so you have to look at, it's not going to be individual accolades. They started charting Cape blocks, a while back, but it's a rare thing to do in the NFL. So it's really the wins and losses column, that is going to be your athlete, because it starts up front. And again, your teammates and guys inside the locker room, the media is one thing. And, as an offensive lineman, you're not going to score a lot of touchdowns. But you want to be viewed in the locker room, by your peers as somebody who is going to show up and be consistent every day. I heard the word consistency as I was in the back of the room on the previous panel. And that is, to be called consistent as an offensive lineman, I think is the highest compliment you can get. And, really, it was just, if you were viewed as a consistent guy by your teammates, that's all the accolades you needed.
Okay. That's good. That kind of leads me to my next question real quick about, in the trenches, you got to make a split second decision. How do you build trust with the team around you and the guys around you? And what kind of that trust, how does that equate in business?
Yeah. So we used to say in Indianapolis, you get paid for the days leading up to Sunday. Sundays, you're paid for free. But the week of work that everybody doesn't see behind closed doors, that is where that trust is built. Training camp in the fall, late summer, you have thousands of repetitions with the guys playing next to you, and that's where you build that trust. That everybody has built the same fundamentals. They've seen the same thing. You've sat in hundreds of hours of meetings together, watching film. We've been in the weight room together all off season. You got the practice reps from training camp, and you're kind of forged in that crucible. And you know that the guys next to you have done the same thing. They've been exposed to the same types of pressure, so that when you get out there on Sundays, you're ready to rock and roll. And just thinking about that professionally and what I do now, it's kind of the same thing. Any team you're on professionally, you want to be able to trust the people that you're with and know that they're going to kind of hold up their end of the deal too. And I think that comes with time spent together and consistency together and getting those repetitions and having success stories so that in the future, moving forward, you could say, hey, we've been there, done that. We have the confidence, the fundamentals to succeed at a high level again.
Let me jump in.
All right, I'll let you talk.
So earlier on the panel, you weren't here, but Derek, you a coach, your coach, Rich Brooks. What did he say to you that's kind of stuck with you?
Today, give everything you have because what you keep, you lose for an effort.
So you had a lot of great coaches. Is there anything that you had, like other coaches you've had coming up, that something that stuck with you that you even use to this day?
Yeah, and I was thinking, I knew somebody was going to ask me that question. I was thinking before I came here, I had Urban Meyer my last 2 years of college, and same sentiment. He used to say 4 to 6 seconds, all you got. A football play lasts 4 to 6 seconds. He used to say A to B. And in that A to B, you're going to be measured from point A to point B, but it takes time to accelerate, and you have to accelerate all the way through that point B and through it. And what that takes is work on the front end and to finish through the back end, to see it through. 4 to 6 seconds is the length of a football play. You don't want to stop short of that, right? Play from the whistle. And I think it's that same thing. You don't want to sandbag it and hold on and save your effort for the next one. You want to sell out every play. You get to high enough levels of football, you have to, right? Or else you're going to get embarrassed because there's going to be a guy out there who's bigger, stronger, faster, certainly faster in my case. But if you don't sell out and give it everything you got, you're going to get exposed and embarrassed. And the guys next to you, again, holding up your end of the deal, they're going to say, wait a second, all of a sudden, I don't know if Jack's going to be able to hold up, and then you start having weak points. So you got to have that confidence. If you got to be able to give it everything you got, every play.
That's good.
That's great.
That's really good. So kind of relating back to our industry and some of the things we've been talking about this week are training and keeping, the staff trained and educated. And I think we need to put a lot of emphasis on this because I relate it back to sports. Imagine what would it be like going out and playing on a Saturday and a Sunday if you didn't practice all week, right? If you didn't take those time to work through that. So how important it is, how important do you think it is, not only in sports but also in business, to train in what you're trying to learn to do and what you do every day?
Yeah, extremely important. Especially on the offensive line for the same reasons we've been talking about all morning, is you want to be able to have those reps and that time spent together, time on task together, so that when you get in the action, it's reflex. You're not thinking about it. If I didn't practice when I was playing football, I did not feel prepared. A lot of times in college or the NFL, when you're playing ball, if you don't practice a certain amount of time, there's a threshold where the coaches are going to say, hey, we don't feel good about putting you out there. Because each week is a new week, and there are going to be blitzes and schemes and things you see defensively that you see on film, you can practice during the week. And if you haven't seen those things, everybody knows you're not going to have the confidence in the muscle memory and the reflexes to go out there and perform at a high level. So especially for me, I was not ever the most physically talented guy, biggest, strongest, fastest. I was never any of that. So my game came from the technique and the film watching and the fundamentals. I knew that I had to be on my P's and Q's on the technical stuff in order to perform with guys and even the playing field with guys that were bigger, stronger, faster, and more athletic than me. So the hard work was during the week was the thing that gave me the confidence on game time to go out there and perform at a high level. And when you get out there, you've done the work. You get a third down situation with a crazy look, and Von Miller's walking around. You don't know where it's going to end up. And I remember thinking to myself, like, hey, doesn't matter. Don't overthink it. You've done this. And it's funny when you go back and watch the film, you'll see yourself block a stunt or a blitz or a delayed pressure or something, and you have no idea how you did it. right? It wasn't a conscious decision in the moment, but you'd practice it so many times where it's like, of course, I blocked that 50 times in practice. Of course, my body knew what to do in the moment. And that's a good feeling when you get to that point. You have those fundamentals and those reps where it becomes an unconscious thing rather than having to think about it.
So you're saying you didn't just wing it, right?
No. I mean, some guys, there were certain guys that I played with, especially I spent a year with Reggie Wade, his last year playing professional football. Reggie did not practice, but he had a long career of practice where, you get to a point where maybe it's so ingrained in you that you don't need to practice. But I was not at that point. I would not have the confidence to play at a high level if I didn't have those reps during the week.
Question for you. Did you ever did Andrew Luck ever buy you a Rolex? I heard about, NFL quarterbacks buying the line, nice gifts or anything. Did you ever get anything nice?
So that's a funny story. And Andrew's a good buddy. He's coming in town. He's staying at my house tomorrow night. I love him, and I'm going to make fun of him right now. So every year, the quarterbacks in the NFL, you would see guys buying cars and ATVs and stuff. And so we'd always wonder. And Andrew was a highly compensated guy. So we, especially after he got to his second contract, we're like, okay, we'll see. Maybe this Christmas will be the one. So he said, hey, guys, come in here. I got your gifts for you. And he gives us a little box, looks like a watch box. We're all kind of looking at each other. We open it up, and it was a Leatherman, a pocket knife, which is great. I still have it to this day. I use it. It's functional, but it's a little bit like you see other guys driving around in their new F-150s and their watches, and I love him for it. But it's he was not that type of guy. He helped us out in other ways.
So maybe took a few finance classes at Stanford?
Yeah, right. Yeah, he was too smart to blow it all on us, big dumb.
Good. Well, you and Bucky mentions you played for some legendary coaches, right? Like Jim Tressel, national championship coach, Fickle, another Buckeye legend, and then Urban Meyer, who you mentioned. What's like a leadership aspect? And I know we talked about it before. They're all kind of different.
Yeah.
But what's a leadership aspect that you kind of see? And then from your coaches in the NFL, like something that you saw, a leadership aspect that kind of almost was around everybody that also kind of translates into business, something that you can kind of carry on with.
Yeah, I think each of those guys, the thing that made them great leaders, and they approached it very different ways. Jim Tressel, was a guy who led by love and put his arm around you and, hey, everything's going to be okay. Luke Fickle was kind of the middle ground between Urban and Jim Tressel. He'd get after you and get into you if he needed to, but also would put his arm around you. Then Urban was a guy who tore you all the way down, and you had to earn your way back up. To even be visible to him, you had to earn your way. But once you got to that point of, hey, he is a guy, or you're a guy that he respects, then you're a made man. But it takes a point to get there, and he'll chew you out. And I had the full spectrum of coaches, but I think the common ground between all those guys, just going back to consistency, there was never a day where I walked in the building and I was guessing what kind of mood Jim Tressel was going to be in. Same thing with Luke Fickle or Urban Meyer. Urban was always in bad mood. But you knew every day when they got from the podium to address the team who you were going to get, pretty much what they were going to say and what was expected of you. And I think, again, just any leader, that's probably consistency is probably the number one trait that I look for. I mean, another thing is, those guys obviously weren't out there on the field with us, but I'm thinking about the great captains I played with and team leaders. They would never ask you to do anything or tell you to do anything that they wouldn't do themselves. And you could see that on a daily basis in the weight room, the way they studied, the way they approached it, and the way they practiced and played. Consistency, and then the willingness to go out and do it themselves and lead by example.
I think that's great. That's a very good point, because I think that is something in our industry, right? So we talked about it earlier. Like a lot of the folks that either own these companies or at high level started out cleaning, right? So if you're willing to show a cleaner, hey, maybe you're not doing that right. You didn't strip that floor right. If you're getting out there behind that swing machine and showing them because you've done it, then that's pretty powerful, right? Like it's you're asking them to do something that you know how to do or that you would do too. right? And then he said consistency. That was a word that kept coming up in our last panel. Consistency, transparency. Also one of those things, like, you know where you stood with those coaches and those leaders, and that made you a better player, a better employee, a better part of that group, right? So I think that's all great and relatable to our industry.
Yeah, and just about that transparency, one thing Urban Meyer did when he got to Ohio State is he would chart everything. Workouts every day, everything he did in the classroom, on the practice field, in the weight room, it was all charted. There was gold, there was red, there was silver, and then there was blue. And they had name tags that they would move every day. If you skipped class, you'd get moved down. If you had a bad practice, you'd get moved down. You know, if our weight coach felt like he sandbagged in the weight room, you'd get moved down. And, you know, at the very bottom, it was a magnetic thing. Some days you'd see a guy's name tag hanging off the blue all the way at the bottom. You knew they were in bad shape, but you always knew where you stood. You know, you knew walking in, hey, if I'm in the red, I want to get to the gold. If I'm in the silver, I want to get to the red. And if you're in blue, then you got work to do. But it was nice to know every day where you stood, kind of give you that blueprint of like, all right, this is where I stand and this is what I need to do to get better.
For those of you who don't understand, right, we're Buckeye legends. Blue is at the bottom, right? That's that school up north. We don't like that. Red at the top. So I had to bring it up.
I was going to say, Jack, when we stood up and everybody introduced when we started this thing out, we heard a lot of like go blue and things like that. So being in Ohio State on the football team, you guys played Michigan. That's your rivalry game every year. Is that something that...
I apologize you used that word.
The team up north.
The team up north. I'm sorry. Like a little perspective on that from being a player, like, cause we all have colleges, you know, some of us don't like college football, but most of us do. And we have a team, and that rivalry game is just something we look forward to every year. Is that something you look forward to every year? Like dominating Michigan or the team up north? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was something, I mean, every coach I played for at Ohio State had an enormous respect for that rivalry. And you kind of have to, if that's going to be your job, the head coach of the Ohio State football team, is you have to understand kind of the gravity of what that means. And there's a huge clock in the weight room and everywhere you go in our facility. It was a countdown to kickoff every year.
I have one in my basement.
Yeah. So you know, but you were always reminded of kind of the goal, which was to beat Michigan or that team up north. And we would have periods of practice called the maize and blue period, where they would put the red shirt guys, they would tape their helmets with blue. They make them look like winged helmets, and we practice against them just to remind you, hey, this is our goal. This is where we want to go. We can practice every week for the team we're playing, but we have an ultimate goal here. And I think one of the common sayings is never look past an opponent, but when you're part of that rivalry, you always have it in the back of your mind. So it was always something we were thinking about. Practice, weight room. I mean, there were signs everywhere that would remind us that's the big one for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, and to brag on Jack a little bit, I mean, he's technically 4-0, played in 3 out of the 4 games because he was a red shirt one year. He's got 3 gold pants. If you don't know what that is, that means every time you're an Ohio State football player and you beat that team up north, you're awarded gold pants. So he's got 3, maybe 4 pairs of those, right?
I have 4 pairs. We did lose in 2011, which was my first year starting. Yes, yeah. But yeah, who's counting?
Yeah. So that's pretty awesome. In saying that too, so your senior year, you were awarded one of the captains of the Ohio State football team. What do you think kind of got you to that point? And what do you take away from, cause that's a big accomplishment and an honor, I would assume. How did that come about? And then how does that get dictated? And what do you take away from that?
Yeah. I was never, a rah-rah guy. It was I was always told at every level at which I played football, put your nose down, emulate somebody on the team who has what you have, and kind of take things from different people's routines and build your own. High school, I did that. College, I did that. And the pros, I did that. But for me, like leadership at Ohio State, it was just about, I redshirted and then I backed up. And then when I finally had an opportunity to start, all I wanted to do was play well. And then, I just approached everything at the highest level I could with the most intensity I could. And, I think I was looked at as a guy who kind of like a blue collar guy who just worked his way up. I was not like, some guys come to college and, the quarterbacks or the really good players, they might be a captain their first or second year. I kind of did it the old fashioned way. And that was just hard work, consistency. We had a really good unit of guys on the offensive line. So I had an opportunity to represent them as a captain, but it was just, I think like, again, like I hate to be a broken record, but the consistency, like I tried to be the same guy every day. I didn't want people guessing what kind of mood I was going to be in. I tried really hard in school, even though I didn't do very well. I took the weight room very seriously, and I loved to practice. And I think that was something that earned me a lot of respect was, guys hated practicing against me. And the reason I practiced like that is because I wasn't good enough to go out there and sandbag it. So, I think just like the lead by example thing for me was more of more natural style of leadership. And I think guys respected that. If I would have gone out there and tried to act like a rah-rah hype guy, it wouldn't have gone well because that's not me. I think when you're in a leadership position, you have to be genuine, and that will always get more respect than trying to be somebody you're not. And the thing is, I never seeked it out. I'm a grunt. I never saw myself somebody fit to be in a leadership position, but I think sometimes the great leaders I've been around are guys who are kind of like that. It's the ones that are really want to be the leader and want to be in a position of leadership that sometimes that it's questionable. It's not genuine. It's the guys who have been there, done that, have that consistency, and all the traits that we talked about. Those are the ones that, in my experience, were really great leaders.
That's good. Bucky, you got another question? I want to take up all the time.
Well, you took up a lot of time, man. No, Jack, we appreciate you having, coming out and speaking. So most of these people are business owners. They own contract cleaning companies. That's kind of why we're here. Any advice for them, like whether it's in business? I've heard consistency a lot. I've heard it sounds like, especially going through the ranks of college, playing in the NFL, it's always about like, have a plan of attack, practice. So I kind of like when I'm hearing you talk, I'm thinking for you all and it's kind of like, what's that one big thing you want or that one big account, like get the mindset, right? Like I want this account, maybe it's up there. It's not quite within reach, but setting goals, putting in the work, consistency. What's some advice that you could give our folks here, our guests to be able to achieve that goal that they think might somewhat be out of their reach? But what's the mindset that they need to have to be able to do that?
Yeah, well, anything I say, I want to preface anything here by saying you guys are a lot more successful than me. I'm a washed-up football player, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. But I think when it comes to having a big goal, at least in my football career, it was just the relentless pursuit. I was never a guy that wrote goals on my mirror or anything like that, but I kind of always had in the back of my head a place I wanted to be. And as small as the probability was, I knew there was a way if I worked hard enough to get that done. And it was just, my wife says I'm still that way about like fishing and hunting. And it's the obsession, the relentless pursuit. When something gets locked in your mind, there's a way to get that done. And you might have to be way out of your comfort zone to do it. And you might have to work in a way that's going to be looked at as a little crazy, but there's always a route to get there. That's my belief. Maybe that's not right, but if you have that goal, there's a way to scratch and claw and get that done.
No, I think that's good. And I think, and I relate a lot of things to sports, but why I also was very excited about this, not because Jack is also one of my favorite all-time Ohio State players, was because of the O-line aspect. And again, I'm biased. I've got two boys that are O-linemen, but we talked about it earlier, right? Like the frontline workers, right? Up until the pandemic may have been kind of in the background or been the ones that were always getting the blame, right? Like if a lunch goes missing or something misses off a desk, who are they blaming? They're blaming your employees, right? They're blaming the cleaners, right? So it's kind of like being an offensive lineman. Like they're not giving you any accolades until the floors are really shiny, right? Or they walk in and the restrooms smell really good. So that's why I like the fact that, and I kind of relate these things together, is because a lot of that is, the pandemic kind of elevated that, but we've got to always elevate, like Jack talked about, right? Like elevate your work ethic, elevate what you do, and the rest kind of follows, right? So I think that's a good correlation there. From being that, right? Like from that O-line perspective and being a part of that group and organization, what have you taken? Because you played at the highest level. You played at the highest level in college. You played at the highest level in the NFL. Like, what do you take with you from that in business today and say, oh, you know what? I think that came from my days of playing. Because I'll be honest, if I had a stack of resumes on my desk, there's two things that I always looked for, right? It was former athlete or former military. Because they know how to be part of a team. They know about leadership. They know about getting knocked down. I guess maybe that's a better question is, your career ended a little bit earlier than you wanted it to because of injury. How do you overcome that to become, successful in business now? Because is that something that you had to overcome that and then move on to the next chapter of your life? And you've done it pretty successfully. So how'd you do that? If you will, because a lot of folks in here, like Bucky said, they're going to lose business. They're going to lose big accounts. How do you overcome big obstacles or letdown like that and then move on and do it even better the next time?
Yeah, it was very tough. I had 7 knee operations in 4 years. So my career in the NFL was a lot shorter than I ever anticipated or wanted it to be. But I had a guy in Indianapolis tell me you always have to begin with the end in mind. And there are a lot of guys, I think, that play football at various levels who think they're going to play forever and they don't have a plan at the end of the day. When I got done playing, it's kind of one of those things where you don't want to have it at the front of your mind, but I knew it was, as soon as I started getting hurt, I said I had to be prepared. So, from my perspective, I didn't have any skills, right? I had never performed in business or anything really other than football. So the first thing that I did is I got my MBA from Indiana University, try to catch up on the school side of things and try to wash that athlete sting off of me a little bit. And then the next thing I wanted to do was go get experience. So what I did after I retired, I didn't have a job for a year. I just called everybody that I could think of in Indianapolis, and I would go to coffee or lunch or dinner or beers. I just wanted to take in as much information as I could. Because you don't know what you don't know. And at that point, I really didn't know anything. So I just absorbed as much information as I could. And then from there, I was able to make a decision as to what I wanted to do. And that kind of turned it, I had to resort my priority. My priority had always been playing football. And then once that got taken away, I had to reassess. And then for me, it became, I wanted to be around my family. So that's what brought me back here as well. My old man always told me someday you're going to be selling title insurance in Toledo, Ohio. Unfortunately, that came to pass. So, but I love being around my family. And it gives me an avenue to attack what I'm doing. That A to B, right? Like I know what I want to do. I have goals every day. I get up and what can I do to achieve those goals? And when I first moved back, I wanted to prove that I was. The same thing in football, right? When you get in a new locker room, you want to prove that you're good enough. And so that relentless pursuit, when I first got back to town, was the same thing. I ran around. I wanted to be in front of everybody and get every account and do everything. But it's served me well. And now it's like you build on that, and it's ended up pretty well. But it was just, again, I thinking about back to that relentless pursuit. And Jerred, you mentioned one other thing you're talking about during the pandemic. It just resonated with me. These cleaning crews that go in and it's very much that metaphor about playing offensive line. It's very much the same thing. I'm just thinking about, the lack of accolades or things you don't see in each of those positions. I'm thinking about why is offensive line different than other positions? And I think it's like everybody that I knew playing offensive line was okay with working when nobody was around, which I think
that relates a lot.
Yeah, it's a good point. You're doing it. I remember going out there, you're doing it for personal pride, right? I wasn't going out there catching balls on the judge machine with, ESPN crews around. I was taking pass sets in, an empty gym by myself. And that to me was always very fulfilling, was just taking pride, having the personal pride of knowing that I'd done the work. And that's, when you were talking about that earlier, I just wanted to make that point as well, because I got to imagine it's the same thing when you're in there after hours cleaning and doing that stuff. It's just that personal pride of knowing you're doing a good job.
Yeah. That's a really good point, because a lot of floor techs, so the folks that do the floors, we call them floor techs. Some of the best floor techs I've ever met in this industry and worked at had pride in what they did, right? And we talked about in the panel, right? Acknowledging that, that they did a good job always helps too. But the floor techs that did the best work were the ones that took pride in what they did. And it showed because they were doing it when nobody else was around. That's when the floors are getting done, right? A lot of the cleaning, like Jack said, that's done. I mean, you guys all know that. So the accolades, the accomplishments and things like that we can bestow upon them is going to help all the organizations. Any questions? You mind if we take some questions from you folks? Any questions for Jack? Yeah. Derek, we got a microphone coming your way.
Yeah, where you talk about the 4 to 6 seconds, I don't know if many people understand the magnitude, how much time that really is. Could you go expound on that? Because it seems like it's only 4 to 6 seconds, but it's longer than that.
Right.
Because there's so many things that are happening. You need to expound on what that really felt like.
Yeah. So I guess the general thought is a football play is going to last 4 to 6 seconds. But you're exactly right, Derek. In those it's like, does anybody ever do a play for 30 seconds? It seems like the longest 30 seconds you've ever been in. That's how a football play is. There's so much cognitive load and physical load that is in that pressure cooker of the 4 to 6 seconds, and it might happen 50, 60 times a game. So to be able to exert yourself at maximum effort, from a mental standpoint and physical standpoint, it takes so much preparation. And to be able to ramp up to get to that point and then, be able to do it again consistently, it takes a lot of effort. It's not just something that you could step into unless you have all those repetitions, all those training camp practices, the weight room in the off season. It is measured in that 4 to 6 seconds, but there are years of work on the front side of that create success in that 4 to 6 seconds. And you might only see that 4 to 6 seconds, but everything else, all the real stuff happened before it. Thank you. Good question.
Really good question. Anybody else with any questions before we start wrapping up? Yeah, Jeff. Yeah.
Yeah, what's it like to be called offsides in a really important play?
Oh man, it's the loneliest feeling in the world. So Penn State is like used to be. I don't know if they still are the loudest. Oregon's up there. Yep. In the Big Ten was a lot of stadium we played in, and we had a road game there, I think, when I was a junior, and there was a lot of hype around it. They were a good football team, and we'd practiced all week, piped sound into practice, got really prepared for it. Like the third play of the game, I jump off sides, and it's a bad feeling because everybody else is still in your stance, and you move forward, and the crowd just went nuts. And it was, but it's that account. The reason it's such a bad feeling is because the accountability part of it. You didn't hold up your end of the deal for the other guys I'm laughing about it now. It is a bad feeling. But you didn't hold up your end of the bargain for the other guys, and then all of a sudden they're looking at you like, hey, is Jack a liability? Is this sound getting to him? But yeah, that's a good question. Bad question, but good question.
Jack, as an offensive lineman, is there holding on every play?
Oh, yeah. You got to be smart about it, right? If your hands are inside, it's not a hold. It's when you get out to the outside and you see jerseys getting tugged. As long as your hands are inside. I mean, my goal every play was the shoulder pads we wear. There's a breastplate there. If I could get my hands behind that guy's breastplate and hold on, that was a win. But if you grab them outside the shoulder pads, that's when the refs see it. But it's an art form in and of itself.
Jack, just so you know, that's a question from a former college kicker, so he's happy that there's some holding on
I love you guys. You protect the fans.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Listen, I want to say, Jack, thank you very much for doing this. I mean, this is to say like a dream come true for me on my bucket list.
He's been talking about this.
Ohio State legend.
You'll never believe what happened. You never hear what's going on.
And then personally, Jack, I mean, just a great individual, great guy, great friend of Spartan Chemical, but also when my son was going through recruiting, Jack walked me through a lot of things on how to do that. And he took his time, and we didn't even know each other. I mean, Doug had introduced us via text, and all of a sudden I got this guy who I watched on TV every Saturday and Sunday texting me like, hey, ask the coaches this and do this. So can't thank you enough, Jack. I mean, you've been tremendous, help with me, and just doing this is just awesome. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. Thanks.